Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Lee and I love to make videos on fitness, travel, and lifestyle. So if that sounds like something that you are interested in, then please make sure to hit the subscribe button so that we can be friends. So today I figured I would switch things up just a little bit and do a video on my home buying process. And I know that there are tons and tons of videos on how to buy a house and what to do to prepare to buy a house. So this is kind of a video just on my own perspective of how it was for me to purchase my home in 2020. So pretty much during COVID, how was the home buying process for me? So because there are tons and tons of videos on YouTube about the home buying process, I figured I would give you guys kind of like pointers that I didn't really see when I was reviewing videos on YouTube when I was in my own home buying process, because believe me, I reviewed tons and tons and tons of videos and I still felt like there were things that I just didn't even think of. So I'm gonna try to include some of those things in this video so that you guys can be, you know, as prepared or more prepared than I was when I purchased my first home. So the first step in order to buy a home is going to be the preparation process. So before you look for a home, before you secure a realtor, you really need to understand your finances so that you can understand how much house can you comfortably afford. Because you don't want to get out there and, of course, every time that you apply for a loan, they're going to give you some outrageous amount, and you don't want to just take the first offer, and you don't want to, you know, purchase a home that's going to be at the top of your budget. So you want to understand how much house can you comfortably afford and what that mortgage is going to look like for you, including the mortgage as well as any PMI and interest and home insurance and all these other things that add up. So in order for me to understand how much home I can actually purchase, there's a whole bunch of calculators online, and I kind of use that in order to get a ballpark figure of how much house I could afford. And I will link some of my favorite ones down in the description box below. But also I thought that Zillow was a very good help as well. So you can kind of see, like, if a house is, let's say, $200,000, how much Zillow or Redfin is estimating that that mortgage is going to be, including how much down payment you'll put down, and how much home insurance is. So you can kind of play with the numbers and you're able to determine how much house you can actually afford. Once you know how much house you can afford, then you can actually start saving. I had a very specific dollar amount for my down payment. And then once I had that dollar amount, I was able to determine how much I needed to contribute on a monthly basis in order to reach that dollar amount over a 5-year period. So I know that's very anal, and a lot of people might not do it like that, but I'm very strict and very organized, and that's just kind of how I did it. So once I had that dollar amount, what I think that I did that's kind of different and a lot of people just don't really recommend, but I did it anyways, is I took that dollar amount and I actually invested it. So I picked stocks that I thought would, you know, of course, go up in value over a 5-year period of time, and I invested in that consistently over a 5-year period so that I can save up enough money for the down payment. Now, some people don't recommend doing that because if there is some type of market crash or the market isn't doing well, then of course, you know, you're not going to have that savings when you're expecting to have that savings to put down towards the down payment. So, you know, I kind of got to give y'all, you know, the pros and cons to doing that. But in my particular case, it just really, really worked out for me. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, so your down payment is going to depend on what type of loan you get. So you can either do an FHA loan that's going to be 3%. You can do a conventional loan that's going to be 5% down. Or you can do, I believe, just a traditional 20% down, which is going to get rid of your PMI. So I personally put down 5% on my house. And the reason that I decided to go with the 5% down is because I wanted a conventional loan that was going to be a lower interest rate as opposed to doing the FHA loan, which was going to be a higher interest rate. So I'll talk further on in the video on what interest rate I got and how I was able to get that interest rate. So the next step in the process is going to be actually securing your loan. So I kind of touched on this in step 1, but you're going to want to find different lenders and you're going to want to get different quotes, I would say from at least 3 different lenders, so that you can make sure that you're getting the best quote possible. And this is why I say that. And I'll give you a very specific example. And I don't have no shame in my game. I'm going to just tell y'all, I'm going to just keep it real with you, okay? So I have been a Navy Federal customer for years, y'all, like almost a decade. And the reason that I originally went with Navy Federal is because I heard that they give the best, like the best interest rates. They give you the best quotes in order to get a loan for a house. And I always knew that I wanted to be a homeowner. So I went into Navy Federal almost 10 years ago thinking, okay, I'm gonna go with them in order to get a loan, get my mortgage, right? When I applied for a mortgage with them, y'all, it was definitely like the worst experience out of the 3 different lenders that I went to for a quote. So I did it all over the phone. The person that I talked to, we was just not vibing, y'all. We were not vibing. And I think it's because of the questions that she was asking me. I really felt like they were discriminatory questions. Like, I'm gonna just be honest with y'all. And if you are a mortgage lender and you're watching this video, maybe you can make a comment below if that is like a normal type of question that they might ask you. But I just really wasn't feeling it. And so one of the questions that my person asked me was about my race. And she gave like this disclosure statement that was like, oh, you don't have to disclose if you don't feel comfortable. And so I said, I choose not to disclose that information, because in my mind, why does it matter what my race is? Like, I didn't feel like it should matter in the mortgage and the lending process. But then after I said I didn't want to disclose, the person read another disclosure statement that was like, if the candidate or if the customer, whatever, chooses not to disclose, then we'll make a selection based off of our interaction, but we're just gonna make a guess on what race we think you are, and we're gonna make a selection for you. And I just wasn't really feeling that. So if you are a lender, please let me know in the comments below if that is normal. But the other companies that I applied to did not ask me questions about my race at all. So I'm not really sure why Navy Federal asked me, but they did. And let me tell y'all this, full disclosure, I'm just gonna be honest with y'all. I had a 750 credit score when I applied for a mortgage on my loan. Or a mortgage on my house, which is great. Like, that's excellent credit, right? Navy Federal gave me a 3.5, or they offered me a 3.5 interest rate. And I had a 750 credit score. So I feel like that was so high. It was so high. So I ended up not going with Navy Federal. And the mortgage company that I ended up going with is actually a regional company. So I believe that they do mortgage loans in the states of Maryland, Virginia, and I believe that they do it in the DC area as well. And the mortgage rate that I ended up getting was 2.5%. Yeah, I'm pretty confident it was 2.5%. So that was literally a whole percentage point difference. And I just definitely recommend that you get multiple quotes, because that 1% difference can cost you $20,000 to $40,000 depending on the price of your house. Another difference that I can, just tell you from my own personal experience, when I applied for my loan with Navy Federal, they actually charged me, I believe, $25 in order to run my credit. Whereas the company that I actually went with, there was no charge to run my credit. So just kind of want to let you know that you may have to come up with some money up front if you are applying for different mortgage companies. But you very well can find a mortgage company that's not going to charge you anything. Also, what I really liked about the mortgage company that I ended up selecting is that they gave me a sheet that was very broken down, very specifically, in how much my loan was going to cost me. So I had like a better understanding of like what all numbers went into the mortgage process. So in the sheet that they gave me, it included the mortgage, it included the PMI rate, it included how much money I would specifically need to come to the table for closing costs, included everything, and it was very well broken down, and I didn't feel like there were any hidden costs. So definitely shop around and make sure that you're getting the best rate and you're getting the best customer service, because you could potentially be dealing with this company for the next 30 years or less. So step 3 in the home buying process is to secure a realtor. So the realtor that I selected was actually recommended to me, but you can definitely go on Google, There's I like to do everything on Instagram, y'all. So you can just type in Instagram and look at the tags and just do, you know, Maryland Realtors or Cincinnati Realtors, and you may find like a presence there, and you can kind of get to see people's personality and see if it would work for you. Now, a tip that I have in this area would be talking to them on the phone is not enough. I would definitely do like the initial, you know, reach out to them via email, and I would see how they respond to you. Because I have friends that selected realtors and they talked to them on the phone and they met them in person and everything was great. And then when it came down to actually working with that realtor, and after you sign a contract to work with that realtor, they realized that their realtor is not very, let me see how I put this, unable to communicate effectively in writing. And the whole house buying process is going to be in writing. Like when your realtor is negotiating the best deal for you, they are going to be making phone calls, but they're also going to be sending a lot of stuff in writing. They're going to be reviewing contracts and stuff with you. So I think it's very important to, you know, you get a feel for how your realtor is able to communicate in writing. So are their emails misspelled? Do they send you text messages that don't make no sense? Like those kind of things you want to definitely look out for when you are selecting a realtor. So step 5 in the house buying process is to actually go out and look for houses. So that is the fun part. So having a good realtor is definitely going to make a difference in this particular area, because sometimes realtors have connections where houses will come on the market before they officially come on the market. And then if you have a realtor who is well connected, then they're able to give you those houses so that you can kind of get like a first look before anybody else is able to even compete for the house, right? Like one thing that's really important in this competitive market that we're in now is, you know, people be getting tens, hundreds, I don't want to say hundreds, I would say 10 to 100. I know of a person who actually put in an offer on a house and there were 100 other bidders. So yes, it's a very competitive process, and if your realtor is very well connected, then I think, you know, you're gonna get first come and first dibs on houses. So you get to go look at houses, and then this is really the fun part, right? And I think knowing your budget and doing all that research up front will kind of, you know, put you in the mind state of what kind of house you can afford and what area you can afford. So by doing my research, I knew what area I wanted to live in. And so when I was looking at houses and stuff, I would literally like stalk the house, y'all. Like I would go to the house at different times of the day. I would go on the weekends. I would go at night, and I would just want to see, like, you know, is it a bunch of trash outside? Is a bunch of people hanging out outside? Is it well lit? And then one thing that's really important to me is I like running. So I wanted to see, are there other runners in the area? Are the sidewalks safe? So if I saw a house that I liked, y'all, I would stalk it. I would stalk it, and then I would connect with my realtor so that we can go see the house in person. And so in my home buying process, I actually only put in 2 offers, which is crazy because, you know, I hear horror stories of people, you know, being outbid on 20 different offers. So the first offer that I put an offer in, or the first house that I put an offer in, I got outbid by $100,000. So I was not even close to being, you know, selected for that particular house. But the second house that I saw, I actually got really lucky, y'all, let me tell you. So the house that we ended up getting, the seller had actually accepted an offer, and that offer fell through. And so I got the house, or I saw the house the second time around. And so by the time that I saw the house, there were no other offers on the table. I didn't have to pay above asking price. I bid asking price, and my first offer was accepted. So I definitely would say that that is an anomaly in this current market. So I definitely got lucky in that. Now, I will say this. When I went to see the house, I actually arrived early to my appointment. And I saw, you know, my neighbors outside, and I got to get a feel for the area. And so lucky enough for me, my neighbor was actually my neighbor now, but he didn't know he was gonna be my neighbor. He was actually checking his mail. And so I stopped and talked to him, and I wanted to see, hey, like, you know, will my potential neighbors be friendly? I wanted to ask them about the house, if they know if the, you know, the seller or whatever, if their previous neighbor had any consistent issues with the house, if there's any like pests in the area, or like, you know, what's the crime like. Like, I asked him very specific questions, and he was very responsive and very nice. So that really made me feel confident in, you know, potentially being this person's neighbor. Now, I'm not recommending that everybody do this, because some people, they live in a place and they don't talk to their neighbors ever. Like, they literally can live in a place for 10, 20, 30 years and never talk to their neighbors. But me, when you're making such an important decision like that, and you're gonna, I mean, houses are expensive, and you're gonna spend so much money on a house, I feel like, you know, I need to know what the area is gonna look like. I need to know what it's gonna be like, and I'm not afraid to talk to people. So I definitely was canvassing the area, and I was definitely asking people what they felt of the neighborhood, and if they felt like they had good neighbors, and if it was a good neighborhood. So step 6, or is it 6? I don't know, it's 6 or 6. So step 6 will be actually submitting an offer. And so you're gonna work closely with your realtor in order to submit your offer to the seller. And the only tip that I pretty much have in this section is to come correct, y'all. So don't try to lowball them, especially if it's a house that you are really interested in. Don't think that, oh, you're gonna, you know, get it discounted for $20,000, or, you know, you're just gonna throw out a number and they're gonna accept it, because they're not gonna accept it. It's definitely a seller's market, so if you throw out a low ball, they might not even respond to you. So I definitely recommend that you come correct when you're submitting your offer. Another thing when submitting your offer is, I definitely recommend that you work with your realtor to also include contingencies in your offer. So if for whatever reason your loan or your financing falls through, you know, make sure that you're gonna get your earnest money back. I put, in my particular case, I made sure that I included contingencies about whether or not the seller, if they hid any information, or if they purposely tried to cover something up. Like, let's say there was like a leak in the roof or something, and when I viewed the house, they just painted over it, and so I was unable to detect if there was a leak. I made sure that I included in my offer that if the seller was negligible, or was deceitful, or tried to cover up anything that would otherwise deter me from purchasing the home, that they were going to be responsible for making any type of repairs and covering any type of damages. So that is completely legal, and I would definitely recommend that you work with your realtor and definitely look up some other, you know, wording, or, you know, something that I might have missed, or something that may be more applicable to you that you would want to include in your offer. But I just know for me, I definitely included a number of contingencies, because I just wanted to make sure I was covered, y'all. Like, I watched so many horror stories of people in their home buying process, and then the house ended up leaking, or the roof caved in. Like, it was just crazy, like, what people go through. So I made sure that I covered myself and included any type of contingency to make sure that I was covered from any negligible or deceit from the seller. Okay, so step 7. So once the seller accepts your offer, then you need to schedule a home inspection. And I definitely recommend that you are present during the home inspection, y'all, because you want to see how thorough the person is going to be. I don't recommend that you cheap out on this process, because you have to look at your house, or your potential house, the house that you want to live in, as an investment. Like, not only a financial investment, but you are going to be in this house, and your house can either be a dream, or it can literally be hell. So I definitely recommend that you don't cheap out on the home inspection process, on the home inspector, and I recommend that you are present. Like, when you go and do your home inspection, if it's a good inspector, they're gonna walk through everything and show you every little thing about it. My inspector that I went with was very thorough, and they gave me a very thorough report. And within my report, it listed things from green, yellow, and red. Everything was color coded. And so the items in red were like items that I really need to pay attention to and would need to fix within the first year. And then the items in yellow were things that, oh, you know, I need to pay attention to them, but they may need to be replaced within 3 to 5 years. And then the items in green were like, oh, these were, you know, new appliances or new HVAC system or whatever the case may be. And so I wouldn't have to pay that close attention to those items, or at least not as immediately as when I move in. So I definitely recommend not cheaping out on the home inspection process. So after the home inspection process, that's when you pretty much go into this, I would consider this the second negotiation period, because the home inspector has identified items that, you know, may need repairs now, may need repairs in the next 3 to 5 years, and you're negotiating with the seller for them to fix those repairs. So some things may be important to you, or more important to you than others, and you pretty much have to negotiate with the seller to say, hey, our home inspector identified these things, and you can either, one, deduct some of the price, right? Like knock some of it off so that I'm purchasing the house for less in order to account for those items that need to be repaired, or you can repair those. And so in our case, we had some minor repairs that we wanted the seller to fix. The seller agreed to fix all of those things, and then they sent us documentation of having those repairs completed before we went to close on the house. This is very important. We went to go review and ensure that those repairs were made before closing on the house. So I don't know if that has to be in any particular order that you do that. I think that you have more negotiation power if you do that final check before closing on the house, as opposed to closing on the house and expecting, you know, the seller to make those changes afterward. So in our case, we physically came back out to the house, walked through, and made sure that the seller made all of the repairs that they said that they did the day before we closed on the house. The eighth and the final step of the home buying process is to actually close on the house. So between the time that I put in the offer for the house and the time that it took to close, it was 30 days. No more, no less. It was a very quick process. Like, they were speeding through. And I think that that might too be because of the type of loan that we decided to go with, which was a conventional loan. I think with FHA, from what I've seen, it can take a little longer, but in my closing process, it was very quick. From the time I put in the offer, it was literally accepted within 24 hours. The home inspection was a week later, went to underwriting, and then the closing process. So all in all, that whole entire process took 30 days. So I would definitely be prepared that when you put in that offer, you know, you might have to move. You're definitely gonna have to be prepared to move. So it was a very quick process for us. And so you're gonna be in constant communication, at least I was, with the lender. And so they were giving me updates on, hey, we're in this process of the closing process. We've sent everything to underwriting. Your closing date is going to be on this day. And this is specifically how much money you need to come to the table with. So when we went to close, our seller was actually not present. And it's because it was during COVID times. And I actually prefer that. Like, I honestly, like, looking at it, I don't see why the seller, or why you ever need to meet the seller. I think that whole process is outdated and is weird to me. So I don't know. Like, our seller actually came, I think the day before we got there, or maybe like a couple of hours before we got there. So I never saw the seller or had to meet the seller or have any awkward conversations, like, at all. So everything was just handled with the lending company, or with the closing agency and the seller, and then I came after and met with the closing agency and closed on the house. So it was a very smooth process, and I didn't meet the seller at all. One tip that I will say in the closing process is that once you put in your offer for the house, do not make any crazy purchases. So don't open any lines of credit to go purchase new furniture or to help with you moving. Don't trade in your car and buy a new car. Don't quit your job. Don't do nothing crazy. So just be very consistent, and then once you go through the closing process and you got those keys in your hand, then you can do whatever you want, whatever you feel is necessary. But I definitely do not recommend you doing anything that's going to change your financial outlook while you're doing the home purchasing process. Okay, you guys, so I know that was a ton of information. So hopefully the video was not too long, but I know I definitely tried to keep it concise. I'm always open to answer any questions, so if you have any questions, please make sure you leave them in the comments below, and I'll try to make sure that I get to them if I was unable to answer your questions, or if you had any questions during this video. So if you found this video even remotely helpful, please make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for future content. I also want to make a video on how much money I spent in the first year of home ownership. I think that is a very helpful video because when I was in the home buying process, I was definitely researching a lot, and I was trying to kind of figure out how much money should I have saved outside of closing costs. So everyone talks about the down payment and the closing costs, but you also need to kind of save in preparation of that first year of home ownership. So I definitely am interested in filming a video like that. I'm probably going to include that on my finance channel because I think it's going to be more, it's going to fit better over there. So if you're not following me on my finance channel, I'm actually FreckleFace Finance. I'll leave a link down below so that you can follow me there, and I'll try to include a video on how much my first year of home ownership cost me. It definitely cost me, you know, a little penny. I have to add up all the expenses, but it's definitely some expenses that I was not anticipating on. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, make sure to check me out over there. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys next time. I hope you found this video helpful. Please make sure to keep your actions intentional, your thoughts positive, and remember that hurt people. But today, it starts with us. And I will talk to you guys and see you in my next video. Bye.